Today I'm going to talk about the strategies that doctors use themselves in order to lose weight. It's coming right up. And stick around to the end when I'm going to share with you Tracy's story as well as her fasting regimen and how she was able to use some of the strategies that we talk about in the upcoming video to lose 90 pounds. I'm going to discuss a paper that was published just recently in Obesity Medicine, and it's called Dietary Weight Loss Strategies for Self and Patients. And what it is a cross-sectional survey of mostly female physicians and the strategies that they told patients to lose weight and the strategies that they used themselves. And surprisingly, there's a huge distinction between the strategies that they recommended and the ones that they themselves used to pretty good success, actually. So let's see what the doctors did themselves. In this study, there was almost 900 respondents in this physician group to a survey. The average body mass index is 24.9, so they're not really overweight, they're just on the borderline. The weight loss over the last year, which they reported themselves, was 13.2 pounds. 55.3% had lost at least 10 pounds, and 6.3% had lost more than 40 pounds. So in this group that was not particularly overweight, they were still very successful at losing a significant amount of weight and keeping it off. So what was their secret? When doctors were trying to lose weight, the number one strategy that they used by a long shot was intermittent fasting, somewhere around 75%. In other words, 3 out of those 4 doctors, when they're trying to lose weight, used intermittent fasting. The second was a low carbohydrate ketogenic strategy, used by between 30 and 45%, as well as other low carbohydrate strategies, including calorie restrictions, a little less, around 20 to 26%. And surprisingly, a relatively unused strategy for most patients anyway is prolonged fasting. When doctors were trying to lose weight, almost 14% of them tried prolonged fasting, which is fasting over 24 hours. So it's clear that in order to achieve their success, they use strategies which are largely centered around fasting, as well as low carbohydrate diets. And this is very interesting because if you look at most guidelines, nutritional guidelines for weight loss, healthy eating, most of them in fact do not endorse fasting or low carbohydrate diets specifically, especially ketogenic diets. Yet these physicians for themselves had overwhelmingly made that choice. When you look at the advice that these doctors gave to their patients, by contrast, the majority did not recommend intermittent fasting. Only about 30% were recommended to use intermittent fasting, and the longer fasting period, only 1 to 2% were being recommended to their patients. Ketogenic diets and low carbohydrate diets also around 40%, which is much less than those physicians were using for themselves. For other diets, such as commercial weight loss programs or the Mediterranean diet, most physicians didn't use it at all. Only 1 to 8% of doctors used that. But for patients, they were recommended almost 25 to 30% of the time. For people with high blood pressure, the standard treatment that is recommended in terms of diet is called the DASH diet, which is the dietary approach to stop hypertension. Indeed, 57% of those patients were recommended this DASH diet. But when you look at the physicians themselves, virtually none of them were using the DASH diet. Same thing for prediabetes and diabetes. You can see that patients who are overweight with prediabetes were recommended the diabetes prevention program diet 21% of the time, but when you look at physicians themselves when trying to lose weight, used it 0 to 1% of the time. So there's a huge distinction between what doctors do themselves and what they tell patients to do. And which one is more effective? Well, That all depends on the person, but when the professionals, the doctors, are choosing a specific strategy, you can bet that there's a reason why they're doing it themselves. It's just like they say in finance, don't tell me what stocks to buy, tell me what's in your portfolio. That's what's really important. When people have their own health, their own weight on the line, what is their go-to diet? And overwhelmingly, it's intermittent fasting. But in addition, they also use more intensive strategies such as extended fasting, things that they would never tell their patients to do, yet they use themselves to good effect. So not only do they do shorter, more frequent fasts, they also do longer fasts that go over 24 hours. When they talk about the diet, they mostly choose low carbohydrate diets. Despite the fact that many nutritionists say that it's a fad diet and it's all about calories, when it's their own bodies on the line, they choose low carb. And the third most important thing to understand is that they use a combination of strategies. So they don't limit themselves to a single strategy. They almost always combine the two strategies together. 78% of those physicians used a combination of diet and fasting. And again, overwhelmingly a low carbohydrate diet with intermittent fasting. That seems to produce the best results for themselves, and that's why all those doctors did that. Tracy had been facing a lifetime of yo-yo dieting, as well as chronic asthma and eczema, which is a skin condition. At her heaviest, she was 230 pounds. She lacked any energy and desire, and she just didn't want to keep going like that. Her husband was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and he discovered a ketogenic diet, and he was able to manage his diabetes quite well. So she decided to give that a try also. After 2 years, she had lost a few pounds and did get off of some of her asthma medication, so she did well, but her weight had plateaued. She was struggling with food addiction and also had a terrible case of the eczema. Tracy's fasting schedule was mostly alternate daily fasting, but every few months she would incorporate an extended fast. She would add in an additional 36 to 42 hour fast, usually on a Sunday or a Tuesday, just to keep things fresh over that week. She used the extended fasting, she used the combinations, she used the ketogenic and low carb diets. That's great work, Tracy. Her top tip, stay hydrated, monitor your electrolytes, and keep busy. Your body knows exactly what to do during a fast. Once she understood that she doesn't have to keep adjusting it, that her body will do it automatically for her, she was able to let go of all those worries and just trust her body. That's amazing job, Tracy. Keep up the great work. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something, and if you did, maybe share it with a friend. They may learn something too. And if you could do me a favor, hit that like button down below so that other people can find this video. I'd really appreciate that. I'll see you next week.